Okay, hello, Anson Garcia here with Verizon, and today's topic is WebEx video callback. Now, what we're going to be discussing is probably um, kind of mid-level technical terms, or technical content, I should say. And what we're going to do is give you a few objectives here. So my objectives for you during this training is to kind of give you a working knowledge of how video callback works with WebEx. And I hope to give you the tools. If you're a pretty technical person already, I hope to kind of connect the dots and give you the tools to create the configuration that allows this to happen in the Cisco UC environment, whether that be UC or Verizon UCAS or any other hosted HCS Cisco-based solution. So let's get started. The prerequisites here are kind of having a working knowledge of DNS, so I'll be throwing some concepts out. I'll try to explain most of them, but I might miss a couple, so I kind of assume that you know a little bit about DNS. I assume you know a little bit about Cisco Expressways and what they do and the differences between Cisco Edge and Cisco Core Expressways. And obviously, you need a little bit of working knowledge in Unified Communication Manager or Call Manager and how it routes calls. And again, as I said, this is kind of a medium skill level. So the first thing I'd like to do is give you a demo of what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's take a look at a demo of what I'm talking about, or WebEx video callback. So I have a WebEx started here, my personal room. On this one, and then right here I would usually need some kind of callback, or I could call in. Maybe I wanted the meeting info or something like that. But today what we're going to be doing is clicking on these three ellipses here, and this call my video system. So I'm going to call my video system. In other words, I'm wanting WebEx Cloud to call my video system, whether that be a video phone, a big video conference room, telepresence unit, or what have you. And so let's do that. So I'm going to call it a different address because I don't want that one. And I'm going to paste the URI in here. And this URI is going to be the system or the DX650 that you see on the camera there. So this DX650 has a URI associated with it, and I assume you know how that works inside Call Manager, so I won't explain that. So let's do that. Let's demo this. So I click the call. Now what's happening is a call is going through the internet. WebEx is producing a call, and it's coming into my Cisco environment, and it's presenting itself on the screen here, which I will answer. And then you'll see I go into the video room, and now we're going to see, I think that camera is going to come on, and you're going to see something funky here. In the WebEx, you're going to see the camera, and because that's what the phone sees. So the phone sees the camera, and the camera sees the phone. So anyway, let's hang that up. No reason to stay on that call, but you know what that is. That DX650 could have been a telepresence unit on the wall, an MX, DX, SX10, SX20, whatever. So that's the demo. That's what we're going to find out, how this thing works in the background. What parameters need to be provisioned inside the expressways, what things need to exist on the internet, namely DNS and stuff like that. So let's take a look at those things. Now let me bring up this presentation, and I'm going to go quickly. We're going to kind of whiteboard this out, but I want to go over some concepts real quick, kind of the basics. So what happened? What happened was WebEx initiated the call. Right? It was WebEx. I'm in this application here. It's the WebEx application. When I say call back, I'm not telling my PC that I'm on the call back. I'm telling the WebEx application in this cloud, the cloud service, to reach out and call this particular URI, anson.garcia2@bzucas.com is what we used, which was the phone that you saw ring in. Okay, so WebEx initiates a fault. It's acting like a PBX. It's kind of like a PBX connected to the internet. And in that acting like a IP PBX, it's going to need to send out a SIP invite to somebody who's responsible for the endpoint that we're calling. Okay? Well, how does that happen? That happens through the magic of DNS. Two things that we'll be looking at: DNS SRV records, nothing more than a fancy way of saying, I need a service. I need a particular service. For example, if I ask, corny analogy, but I can ask Siri, where is my local DMV station? And it would come back and give me the location, the address, or what have you. Now, I haven't tried that, so I don't know if that actually works. But we're just making a query out to the internet via DNS, and we're saying, look, I need to send a call, particularly a SIP call, and I'm looking for a SIP service that's responsible for a particular domain. Same thing happens with mail. If I send a mail to ansongarcia.com, or Anson@ansongarcia.com, someone's responsible for ansongarcia.com, and I shout out to the internet via DNS and SRVs, who is responsible for taking in the mail for ansongarcia.com. Same concept here. Mail's a little bit different. We use MX records, but they are like SRV records. But anyway, needless to say, I shout out to the internet DNS servers. I need a particular service. That service is SIP. Can you please tell me who is ready to service the SIP invites for a particular domain? Again, our domain we're dealing with here in a demo, vzucas.com. What comes back from that SRV query is an SRV response or a DNS response. And this DNS response gives a list of host A records. Again, a fancy name of just saying host names. Here's 2 host names that are responsible for taking in SIP requests for vzucas.com. And then, of course, there's one more DNS thing that happens after that. Okay, I got the host name. Now I need to ask DNS to, map the host name. Give me the IP address to that host name. So that's the magic of DNS there, and that has to be working. This is dependent. Everything here, these SIP calls are dependent on these DNS SRVs and host records to be available on the public internet for that particular domain. Now, people do that in different ways. Sometimes they host their external domain or external DNS records on GoDaddy. Sometimes they host them on their own DNS servers that are in their DMZ. Doesn't matter. What matters is at the very high level, we're going to do a shout out to DNS on the internet. We're going to expect some responses to come back. Now, after we know where to go, right? So we know where to go to the service at SIP request. We're going to be dealing with these zones. Zones are nothing more than SIP trunks. And then we need zones facing to the internet. We need zones facing from Expressway E to Expressway C. And we need a zone from Expressway C to to CUCM, or Cisco Unified Communication Manager. Now, that's a bunch of mumbo jumbo, and the text way to say things. Let's take it into a drawing realm, and you can kind of see how all these things connect. Okay, let's whiteboard this. What do we have? We obviously have the internet. Let's draw that in the middle of a big cloud here, and we'll represent that by INT, the internet. We also have Cisco's cloud service, WebEx. That's connected to the internet. Obviously, that's how we get to it. We'll say that's WX. Okay, and then in a Cisco UC environment, whether it's HCS like a Verizon UCAS or an on-prem system, enterprise system, they're going to have basically the same components. Namely, we're going to be connecting to the internet. And let me draw a box here. I'll get fancy and draw a box like this. All right. And that's going to be an Expressway E. So I'm going to put a little E there. And I'm going to do an EX right here. We know that's an Expressway E. That Expressway E then is going to traverse, and usually you have a firewall and stuff like here. That's not really important, but I'll draw it in there anyway. A little F there. Okay, and then we're going to have a Expressway C. Right, that's connected. And then at Expressway C, I'll go ahead and draw my other box because there's going to be something behind that, and that's going to be the communication manager. Right there. Let's put some a little bit of text in here. So this is the Expressway C, and then we have our CUCM, right? Our Cisco Unified Communication Manager. And I'm going to just kind of connect that because these connections are really SIP trunks. They're virtual connections, just SIP trunks. And then on the back side of that, just like we did, and we'll draw our little phone here. This is our DX650, okay? So this was, remember, I'm going to put our URI for this guy, and I'm going to abbreviate here. It was Anson Garcia to at, that's my little at symbol, that's not a very good at symbol, at VZUcas.com, okay? All right, so that's the URI for that guy. And this guy, just like any other phone or telepresence unit or anything like that, it's registered. Now this thing is registered to Call Manager. So Call Manager knows the URI. If anyone dials that URI within this environment or asks the Call Manager to dial that URI, it's going to ring this phone, right? That's my little cheesy ring symbol. Now, I'm going to draw a couple of more components here just to, because I like the Verizon way of do things. So I'm going to draw a big box around here, and I'm going to make it a dotted line. Very more interested in, you know, I did that before, and let me pause that. Okay, let's draw this box, or complete this box here. And this is Verizon UCAS, our private cloud service, or our SaaS service for unified communication, Cisco Unified Communication, our HCS offering. And so inside our UCAS, there is a router, and let's put a little router here on the edge, and then that router is going to connect to where I'm going to draw a cloud here. And most HCS providers are going to be very similar, except of course ours is better. And we have Verizon PIP service. This is our private IP where we build all the QoS mechanisms and availability and things like that into our enterprise wide network systems that we offer to our customers, and we hook up our UCAS to that. And I just want to identify that that phone would be connected up to the customer's Verizon PIP service. So this is the basic layout. And, well, let's draw something else out here. There are some, obviously inside the internet, there's DNS. You know, whether that's hosted, hosted by the customer, out on the internet, on the root servers, doesn't matter. We have some DNS servers out there that we're going to ask for some SRVs, remember, and ask for some host names to turn those into IP addresses. And if you just look at this for a second, pause the video, you can pretty much assess the call flow. Okay? And let me draw one more thing. Let me draw the PC. So this particular PC, remember we're running WebEx on. Any PC running WebEx is connected somehow to the internet this way. Okay, so let's just say it doesn't matter if this thing's running internally inside the enterprise over PIP, whatever. Somehow it's getting to the internet. And today I'm just going to signify that by drawing my little PC here. And we were have the little WebEx app up. So what I'm signifying that there is this, my PC that you see here, sharing my screen, and this app is running here. Obviously it is connected through the internet somehow, and then in this app, remember I chose to call back my video unit, in my case my DX650. So I told the WebEx application and WebEx to call my DX650, which is right up here, that URI. So what happened? Item number one. Remember I said the DNS needs to happen. So there was a DNS query for a service. I need to call something. I need to use SIP to call that something, that video endpoint. So I'm going to ask, I'm going to shout out to the internet, and I'm going to say specifically, I need an SRV for underscore SIP dot underscore TCP dot, and I'm going to abbreviate ucas.com. Okay? So that's the WebEx did that. It shouted out to the internet, I need a service. I need the SIP service. What's going to come back? So there's going to be something coming back. So WebEx shouted out to the internet, to some DNS servers. DNS servers came back. Let's say this is number 2, number 1, and number 2. The DNS response was, I have that service listed in DNS, and here's a couple of host names. So it would give them, let's just say host1.vzucas.com or whatever, and maybe there's 2 hosts that service that. You should be thinking in your mind right now, what are those 2 hosts? Well, right here, they're going to be the E's. Now I only drew 1 E in here, but if there was 2 E's, that's where the 2 hosts would come from. In other words, this SRV DNS is telling WebEx, hey, here's the 2 host names that can service SIP requests, or SIP invites, I should say, for this particular domain, vzucas.com. Okay? Hopefully you got that. If you don't, pause here, go back, and kind of try to understand that. If we go any further and you don't understand that, then kind of everything else starts falling apart. So, what happens third? Okay, so third, and I won't go through all the TLS handshakes and PKI or anything like that. I want you to know the flow and the call flows and signaling and things like that. So number 3, skipping encryption, PKI, and stuff like that. What's going to happen is now WebEx knows where to send. Okay, and I'll skip one other thing. We have to turn those host names into IP addresses, but we'll skip that for now. We're looking at things at a 1,000-foot view here. WebEx knows where to send the SIP invites to host 1 and host 2. And let's say this is host 1 right there. Okay, so we'll send it to host 1. So what happens is a SIP invite goes through the internet, and eventually gets to that expressway right there. And it is we'll call this, what are we on, number 3? Well, let me just draw. Number 3 is DNS host name, host to, we need to turn that into IP address. Okay, 4, this is 4 right here. We're going to send a SIP invite. Okay, I apologize for my terrible writing. I'm using a new pen on a touchscreen and it's not coming out very well. So we're going to send a SIP invite. That SIP invite is going to be for who? This guy right here, right? So that URI, remember, because we pasted that URI right in here when we said call my video system. Oops. We pasted that Anson Garcia 2, right? Right when we did that. So that URI, after all the DNS magic, that URI is going to be, Anson Garcia 2. I'll just abbreviate that. Anson Garcia 2 at vzucas.com. Alrighty? Once that URI enters the E, now that E needs to know, or has to have some search rules. It's going to grab this. It's going to receive this call that needs to go to Anson Garcia 2, or Anson.Garcia2 at vzucas.com. He needs to have some routing rules, let's call them for now, that point which way. Needs to eventually get here, right? Because that's the guy that knows that that phone right here is registered, and that phone is Anson Garcia 2 at vzucas.com. So he's got to have some routing rules that say, hey, go across the SIP trunk to the Expressway C. Similarly, the Expressway C needs to send that across the SIP trunk and hand that to Communication Manager, because Communication Manager is the only one that knows Anson.Garcia2 at vzucas.com is registered to him and can have authority to go ahead and ring that phone. Okay, so it's kind of just passing the ball. We're getting this SIP invite in. We're looking at some routing tables internally saying, hey, I need to send it over that guy to the C. The C then, same thing, looks at some routing rules internally that I need to send it over that guy. And then Communication Manager says, okay, what do I do with this? Anson.Garcia2 at vzucas. Oh, that guy is actually registered to me. He is a phone, so let me send him some signaling that rings the phone so somebody can answer it. And then when that is answered, then that flow, the call flow, goes from WebEx, and this is important. Maybe we'll call this all number 5, all this Expressway and CUCM stuff going on. And then 6, I'm going to put 6 right here. That is the media flow, right? The actual RTP stream, the voice stuff. And that's going to go from WebEx. Let's see. Let's pick a different color here. I'm going to do red. I'm going to go from WebEx through the internet into Expressway E to Expressway C. And here you would think you go through Call Manager, but again, it's the media flow, the actual RTP, and then that's going to go to Verizon PIP to the customer's phone. Okay, so that's the media flow, and we have media flowing in both directions, just like that. Okay, so that's the media flow. So hopefully that explains how things work. Now I'm going to dig a little bit deeper. So if that's about what you want to understand, that's fine. We're going to go a little bit deeper now and see exactly what the configuration is, what's going on, how things are happening out there. Okay, let's take item number 1. Remember, item number 1 is the DNS SRV query. So how can I know that vzucas.com has DNS SRV entries external or out to the internet. If anybody asks the internet, and I'm using these terms loosely, but if they ask the DNS servers responsible for bzucas.com, and again, that could be your own external DMZ DNS hosts or servers, or it could be GoDaddy or a myriad of other providers out there. You could be running your own on um, Amazon Web Services or Azure or what have you. So if you have a PC, very easy to do. You can use what they call NS Lookup tool, and you go NS Lookup, and I can see what my PC is using here is 8.8.8 as my public DNS. So that DNS is Google's DNS. I know that um, just by looking at it. 8.8.8 is very well known in the techie world as Google's DNS servers. So what I want to do is set my type. So there's all kind of, I won't go through all these myriad of options inside NS Lookup, but I'm going to set my type to SRV because that's the query that I want to kind of represent. I want to ask for SRVs. And what I'm doing here, I'm kind of simulating what WebEx. So if I were troubleshooting maybe a customer's video callback, this is what I would do. This is what I would do first. I would use my NS lookup tool. I'd set my type to SRVs. And then what SRV do I want to look up? Remember this guy right here. So that's the guy I want to see if the customer put in their DNS external DNS servers underscore SIP dot underscore TCP dot whatever their domain name is. In my case, it's vzucas.com. Okay, let's see what we get back. We get nothing. So what did I do? I did something wrong. Okay, VZUCC as a service, Okay, let's do that again. Okay, and what you see here is one response. Now I got it down to one response. I only have one host record, host server in my SRV. Remember I said there could be multiples. Okay, in mine, I've kind of yanked things out to simplify things. Usually we would get 2 or however many Expressways E's you have on the edge. So really what this service record is saying, hey, here's the host names right here. In my case, host name, only one, that are available to take SIP request or the SIP service. So now I have a host name. Now I just need to resolve that host name. So I'm going to just set type to all. And what I want to do is resolve that host name. So let's see if I can mark here. Okay, so what I did there is number 2 right here. I said, hey, I want to know this host name's IP address because I need to communicate with it. I need to send something to it. And so I did that with the NS lookup tool in Windows. And this works on Windows 10, Windows 8, Windows 7, doesn't matter. Okay, and what we got back was the IP address for that server. Now I'm going to send a SIP invite. So that's what's next. So as long as this is working, then I would say, okay, this is working now. Now let me go to my, let me go make my call. And then from my call, then, okay, we're going to shift gears and actually look at some configuration here. And what I want to show you is the actual configuration of the zones and search rules in the Expressway E, C, and communication manager configuration as well. So we're going to be this is an incoming call. So we go E, C, communication manager. So I want to represent the configuration right here the same way. So from the right to the left, incoming call. Here's the E, here's the C, that's across the firewall, And then here's Communication Manager itself. Okay, so let's go to the E. Let's see what I have. We want to go to Configuration, and we want to look at the zones first. Now, if you don't understand VCS or Expressway, this might be gibberish to you. For those of you that do understand it, um, I like to, and I think Cisco recommends, keeping everything separate, your zones separate, and then those search rules separate, so you can kind of control how things are going on. Again, those that you understand what I'm talking about um, know that you can kind of mold everything to one or configure everything over one zone. Um, I like, and I think Cisco's recommendation is to create different zones for every particular type of call that you're going to be receiving or outgoing. Okay, so that's set. So take a look at here. This is a what we call this WebEx DNS zone is a SIP trunk, and for lack of a better way to put it, a SIP trunk that points to the internet. There is no other side. There's no other IP address. It's kind of a SIP trunk that's open to the internet. It's open to receive SIP requests, SIP invites, and it can also send SIP invites. So it's kind of a just something that's open. Think of it as something that's sitting on the internet, and this zone or this SIP trunk is kind of sitting on the internet ready to receive, in our case, to receive calls. Okay? So one of the things we want to do, and now you can come back to this, but we want to do TLS verify, right? We're doing PKI and things like that. We want to force encryption to the WebEx cloud for these particular calls, blah, blah, blah. Again, this is more of a high level tech talk, so I won't go through all those things. But what I want you to understand is this right here, this configuration in Expressway. E is representative on our drawing as this SIP trunk sent out to the internet. This one has that plugs into the internet. Okay? All right. Let's go back here. Now we want to look at if we get a call, SIP invite to a particular anson.garcia@vzucas.com, where we're gonna throw it to. Remember I said we got to throw it over to C, and then C's got to throw it to call manager. So with that we do search rules. So we're searching for something, and we're taking that particular URI and searching to the so we can route a particular way again to the C. So this particular call, and I usually name things that make sense to me so I can find them very quick. And here's a traversal search. I don't see a WebEx, if I were to carve this into one particular search space, or excuse me, search rule, I'd put WebEx in here, but I'm catching it right here in this traversal search. So this traversal search just says, hey, any protocol, and I probably want to lock that down to SIP, but any protocol, or SIP in this case, I just changed it, any source from anyone out on internet land, any alias, in other words, anything dot anything, if it matches, go ahead and continue, just in case there's something more explicit later on down the line as far as the matching criteria. But I'm going to send it over to the B2B traversal server zone. This is actually a zone, and I have it enabled. Let me save that because I wanted to change that. Should be changing my configuration on the fly like that. But so all this does is say anything coming in. Again, I'm matching a bunch of stuff over here for Cisco Spark and Spark Hybrid and all that stuff. Don't look at that. We're doing incoming WebEx calls. And basically, I'm just getting down to the last one and say anything that's any alias, go ahead and go to this traversal server zone. Now let's take a look at that traversal server zone. Where does that point to? And it's this guy. Oh, no, it's this right guy right here. It's B2B traversal server. Okay. I know it says server there. Just don't disregard that. It's a SIP trunk. Remember, zones are SIP trunks. And I can see here, I got some configuration there. And for you technical guys, you can pause the video and look at that. But you can see that I'm going to go across to the Expressway C is what I'm doing. It's basically what's going on here. I'm going over to the C. And you can see where this is pointing. This 10.151 1.43 is my Expressway E. So if I go to my Expressway E, you can see that's 10.151 1.43. So basically it's saying, hey, if you, in my case, meet anything that doesn't meet any of this other search criteria, and that was over here, just go over, if you don't meet any of this stuff and you get to this last guy over here, go ahead and go over to the C, is what I'm saying. And once we're at the C, guess what we do? We do the same thing. So I have a zone configured over to, let's go take a look at the zone. It's the other side of that SIP trunk. And I named it the same over here, B2B Traversal Client. So that's that SIP trunk going to the E, right? I'll let you take a look at that real quick. Again, you technical guys can pause this and take a look at it if you need to. And then I need some type of search rule. Okay, so I have a search rule here. And let's see what I got here. Do I name everything WebEx? That's out to CMR. Spark. I don't see it. Oh, probably down here. There we go. So I named this one a little more explicit so I can understand it. But it's B2B, and I'll talk about B2B in a second. But basically B2B, C to CUCM. Okay, so C, I mean C to CUCM. C, this particular Expressway C, to CUCM. Right, that's the call flow. It's the rule name. It's just a text thing, just for me or any technical guy that goes in here. They can kind of see what did the configuration guy mean to do with this thing. So we have a little description there, and we have this, and basically here's the source of the SIP trunk. I like just to say source SIP trunk, request made, mode, any alias. If you match this, go ahead and stop, and then send it over to the target. So I'm not very implicit. What's the right term? Explicit, implicit. I think I'm not very implicit. I'm not saying Anson.Garcia2 at BZUcast. I have a bunch of other search rules, and basically this one is the last one. And if you match this one, go ahead and I know your WebEx calling in. Just go. You may pass. Go on through to call manager. Okay, so that's that search rule, and we're going to go to the call manager neighbor is a SIP trunk. It's a zone. Go over here, look at CUCM neighbor, and let's do that again. Okay, here's my CUCM neighbor zone / SIP trunk. And you can see my parameters that I have there. You can see something might look funny there. That 5070 for you technical guys, you don't use 5060 because of MRA is already using that port kind of behind the scenes. You can't see that in Communication Manager, but you can't use 5060 or 5061. You want to use something other than that, and 5070 is a good choice. And then here's my call manager. You can see I'm single threaded here. I just got this thing up, and when you get things up, you want to kind of push yourself into a single threaded, into one Expressway E, Expressway C, and then one call manager. That way you can follow the calls, you can get everything working, and then you can go ahead and get your redundancy, resiliency, and all that kind of stuff, geo redundancy working. Anyway, so that's where that goes. Okay, and I'll give you I'll just scroll down so you can pause the video and look at that configuration and see how that's all done. Okay, let me talk real quick. There's been a lot of discussion about B2B and rich media licenses and things like that. Here's the thing. It's very, very easy. Um, some folks have a little trouble because us technical or semi-technical guys will call things B2B, and then we refer to WebEx callback as B2B, things like that. Remember this. B2B, when people are talking about B2B, they're usually talking about calls over the internet. Any calls over the internet, business to business calls over the internet, something over the internet. It's a general term. Okay? The thing to remember when you need rich media licenses or when you don't need rich media licenses, very simple. Anything to calling to WebEx like CMR, or anything calling from WebEx.com, just like we saw in the demo I showed you earlier, um, doesn't need rich media licenses on these two entities, right? Expressway E, Expressway C. The reason being, this is how, if you look down my prior videos, I explain this, but this is how Expressway or VCS in the VCS world, at which Expressway E and C come from, they used to charge for B2B. So any calls that traversed these two guys that went out to the internet or came from the internet, that would be a charge. It would be a port, like a port. You know, how many concurrent calls you want to the internet or from the internet? Well, I want 5. Okay, well, you need 5 rich media licenses. Well, when CMR came along, Cisco Media Rooms, and then video callback came along, you're already buying a Cisco service out here. So Cisco said, well, since the customer's already buying a service from us, it would be silly for us to charge them over here and make them buy these RML licenses so these calls can pass through. And what they did is they built into Cisco Expressway E and Expressway C to recognize if it's coming from or going to webex.com domain. You don't need an RML license. Just let the call pass. Okay? So that's the simplest way to put it. Now, if you were calling from or to over here on the internet, maybe you had, um, you know, Anson's mechanic shop or whatever, and you were calling from or to, ansonsmechanic.com, that's a different story. Then you would need RML licenses. That's where you need RML licenses. But any calls from or to WebEx do not take RML licenses. That's as easy as I can explain it. Okay, I think we've covered everything. Let me just wrap it up by going to the call manager here and showing you that. I told you I'd show you everything. Here's the call manager. Let's go look at this phone, that DX650 we were talking about. All right, and we're going to look for the phone. The phone had Anson in its description, and there it is, that DX650 that belongs to Anson Garcia 2. And here it is right here. If we go to this directory number, so this is the device, we go to the directory number, we see as part of the directory number that, and it's kind of funny, if you guys don't new to Cisco or something like that or come from the Microsoft world, Microsoft it makes sense because everything's a URI, everything's attached to a URI, and if you want to place an E164 number on it, you can. In Cisco, it's completely flipped upside down. Everything's a device that has a number, an E164 number on it, and then you paste in or glue in a directory URI. Okay, so this URI is now pasted onto this number, and that number exists on the DX650 that we did the demo on, the video callback. So that's it. That's how all this stuff works, and I think that is it. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I hope it has been informative and helpful to your learning Cisco UC.